It's now time to welcome Lady Macbeth to the show. Wife of Macbeth, who is now Thane of Cawdor and Thane of Glamis. We'll be talking about her involvement in the events leading up to the murder of Duncan, Banquo, and the family of Macduff. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Lady Macbeth, what was your initial reaction when receiving the letter from your husband, informing you about the witch's prophecies?
Well, it was very good news that he could become king. However, it was clear to me that my husband is too full of kindness to do what it takes to fulfill the prophecy.
Do you think perhaps there was a different way to make fate hold true as opposed to murdering Duncan?
Absolutely not. I believe we had to make the fate come true, and murdering Duncan was the only possible way.
Oh, so your initial reaction was to murder Duncan?
Of course.
Why is that?
Well, in order for Macbeth to attain the title of king, the only solution would be to eliminate the current king. I had to take matters into my own hands, because I knew my husband would have doubts on committing the murder. So it was my duty to persuade him to go through with it.
Oh, so it appears you have more control in your marriage. Is that right?
Yes. Although Macbeth does possess powerful qualities, I often have to guide him and manipulate him to do what is best for us. More specifically, things involving crime.
Why do you feel you have to manipulate Macbeth?
Because he lacks the qualities of a real man. For example, I possess cruelty, ambition, and presence of mind, which are some of the traits that Macbeth does not have.
Ah, I see. Okay, moving on. Why do you feel that your husband is so deserving of the throne?
Well, that's a tough one. The witches predicted that Macbeth would become king, so that must be our destiny. Besides, with Macbeth as king, our power would be dominant, and I love having power.
Okay, so initially, how did you feel after the murder of the king?
Well, actually, at first I was very satisfied with the deed, because then my husband can finally take what is rightfully his and become the king.
You say at first. Have your feelings on the event changed?
Good question. I am starting to feel quite guilty. I have started sleepwalking and reliving the crime that I have assisted Macbeth in committing. My gentlewoman has told me that I constantly wash my hands in my sleep and repeatedly say, "Yet there is still a spot."
So, why do you wash your hands?
Well, as I said before, after continuously washing my hands, I still see a spot of the king's blood.
So, do you think this is a sign of guilt?
Yes, that's what it must be.
So, after Banquo's death, his son Fleance managed to escape. How do you feel about that? Does it worry you?
Naturally, it does. As you know, one of the witch's prophecies was that Banquo's son would become king. And now that Fleance has escaped his death, the prophecy can still hold true. This can threaten Macbeth's throne, which is very worrisome to me.
So, how did your emotions change from the murder of Duncan to the murder of Macbeth's wife and children?
Well, when I first convinced Macbeth to go through with the murder of Duncan, I felt determined and strong. I didn't anticipate feeling guilt. Macbeth, however, was hesitant on the execution of Duncan. The thought of murder itself made him feel anxious. Ironically, after the crime was completed, the roles seemed to have reversed between us. I became practically insane with guilt and completely paranoid, whereas my husband was more bloodthirsty than ever. He initiated the murder of Macduff's wife and children and was willing to do whatever else it would take to secure his title as king.
Ah, I see. So, what do you think will happen to you in the future?
I don't think I can possibly live with myself enough to think about the future. My guilt is overwhelming me.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to move past that feeling. Thank you for your time. It has been very informative for me.
Thank you for having me.
Back to you, Frank. I have come to you today with sad news. Lady Macbeth's guilt has led her to taking her own life. She was a very strong woman, and her presence will be remembered. May we have a moment of silence for Lady Macbeth?